Hello, Detroiters and people all over the world, all of my friends, my constituents, my optimists, my students, my interns, and all of those who want to get involved in making Detroit uh, great again. Now, Detroit is already a great, iconic city. As you know, we've exiting bankruptcy, and this is a very special moment, especially for realtors, DAR members, and other realtors who will play an important role in Detroit's comeback. So, if you are a realtor, or you are an investor, you are a mortgage banker, or if you are interested in accumulating wealth for your family, your future, and to help bring the community back, this show is for you. Today, I'm not only your host, I'm also your guest. And I'm going to spend some really good quality time with you. Our guest had a little accident on the freeway. It's kind of a cold day today. And they wasn't able to make it, but that's okay because I get a chance to really just have a really great conversation with my constituents, and that's what I would like to do. So I can really drive home the point. This, everyone, is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You know, I entered the real estate business when I was 19 years old, and that was back in around 1970. That's been quite a while. And it was a dynamic time at that point. And I just remember being so excited. I was at Bowers Realty, and those were some exciting times. And, some of the homes and communities I had never saw in my life. And since that time, I've had the run of a lifetime, truthfully. I've accumulated a lot of real estate. I've done a couple $1 billion in deals. I've been through two or three, a couple recessions. And back in 1980, the interest rates hit 20%, and that was a challenging time. I had to roll up my sleeves and prove that I could do commercial real estate then. And then it was just great. I came out, I wrote a book, Getting Rich is Easy, and then we ran into the Great Recession. And this recession has been going on about 10 years right now. And right now, it's a mixed bag. Are we still in the recession? We're at a time where the sun, the moon, and the stars have lined up. We're in the recession, yet we're out of the recession. I mean, in other words, there's a lot of buoyancy in the marketplace in terms of where communities are at, in terms of where our opportunities are at, and in terms of our economy itself. This creates a perfect stairwell to financial freedom. You could just walk right up those stairs. What's the most important thing right now is knowledge. Is knowledge. I have never in all of my life seen so much opportunity. The opportunity we have today is unprecedented. We have special programs right now to help Detroit come out of the recession, you might say. Programs that only Detroit have, and we're going to talk about a couple of those programs. When you think about Detroit, I want you to also remember Detroit have the largest philanthropic community in the United States. Even during the difficult times, southeastern Michigan are major philanthropists, people that give a lot. It's in our culture, it's in our DNA. And the philanthropic community and the government have joined hands and created some great, great programs. And I'm going to talk to you about a couple of these programs and how you can benefit. Now, before I get in there, I just want to just kind of lay the groundwork and understand exactly where we're at. Number one, we have a absolutely fabulous opportunity. There's great demand for housing. The housing demand is really super. People is looking for a place to stay, to rent, to buy. The ready inventory, properties that are move-in ready right now, is the lowest in Detroit Association of Realtors history, and we've been around since 1880. That's more than 100 and something years, and never in my lifetime, which is not that old, but according to what everyone say, this is the lowest inventory we've ever had as a percentage of population that we've ever had. The communities around Detroit has really bounced back, and the demand in Detroit is just as great as anywhere in southeastern Michigan. Yet there's not ready, available inventory. So demand is high, Inventory that is available, move-in ready is low. Now here's the good news. Inventory itself is high, but it's not available to move in yet. So what do you mean? That means that if you can get this inventory, put in a few dollars, you can get a tremendous price for it. Now, and then interest rates are low. What does that mean? That means that people can buy and they can afford. You can buy a $100,000 house with taxes, insurance, and everything and be less than $700. Think about 10 years ago if you bought a house for $100,000. Interest rates were 7.5%. Your debt constant would be about 9%. In other words, you would pay $750 a month just the principal and the interest, not counting your taxes and insurance. Taxes have significantly reduced right now, and insurance is about the same. But just your principal and interest would be higher than your entire payment that you have now. In other words, a $100,000 house would cost you somewhere around $1,000. And today, that same house will cost you somewhere maybe $650, maybe $700, but I would say less than $700. So by interest rates being low, the affordability index is very high. You can afford to take and pay and to get you a bigger house right now. So this creates a very unique opportunity. Now, there's buoyancy in the marketplace. People really do not know what the values are because there are so many competing sales. Some of the sales, for example, are homeowners. Now, anytime you see a sale that has been significant, believe me, it's a homeowner selling, more than likely. Or it would be someone who've repaired the home, fixed it up, or an investor who would like to maximize the value. But at the same time, you'll see sheriff sales, tax sales, foreclosures, land contract forfeitures, and you'll see just cash sales. And people are recording these sales, and they're pushing the value of the properties down. So you can prove that a house is worth $100,000, and at the same time you can turn around and prove the house is worth $35,000 or $25,000. And don't forget, there are some homes that are sold that are improved, and there are some homes that are sold that are not improved. So there's no data in the marketplace to say this home was sold and it needs this much work. Because if you turn around and buy a home for $25,000 and you put $30,000 in, your real acquisition cost is $55,000. So there's a lot of buoyancy in the market rate. People do not know really what the values are. And the good news is that this is a good economy now. The automobile industry is hiring. Detroit has had a tremendous influx of people. I want you to just think about this. 5 years ago, the area code 48201 had a 48.93% poverty rate. It was the second highest in Michigan, only to Temperance, Michigan. 48.93. Right now, that same zip code, known as Midtown, has the highest appreciation in the entire United States. This is how hot Detroit is. So the influx of young people into Detroit, as it's been all over the country, has been a tremendous blessing. And yes, young people all over the country is going downtown. They want to go downtown. You just go to any major city. It's the same throughout the entire United States. People do not want to live in the suburbs as much as they want to live downtown. Why? Because of the social interaction. You walk outside and the world is yours. You know, if you live in the suburbs, it's a different thing. You know, here's the residential community over here. Here's the retail community over here. Here is the office building parks over here, the industrial over here. I mean, everything is separated. It's not like you can just walk out of your apartment unless you're downtown in the suburb, downtown. Downtown living is just urban living no matter where you're at, if you're in the city of Detroit or if you're in Southfield or Birmingham. But just think about whenever you live downtown, you could walk outside and you got restaurants, bars, cleaners, salons. You got all of these things at your fingertips. And downtown is just on steroids with it. You could walk out there and there's dozens of bars, and retail is coming back. And then all of the social reaction, all of the young people want to all move in one time. Detroit is the place to be. They want to get married. They want to have fun. They want to reinvent the city. Don't forget, many of the young people who are moving in Detroit, they are Detroiters. They have Detroit DNA. In other words, their grandparents were born in Detroit. Their grandparents were born in Detroit. Now, after the 67 riots, we know the story. Many of them moved out and their parents kind of stayed out in the suburbs. They were born. Now, all of a sudden, they have graduated from college and they want to be back in because of the exciting things that are going on downtown. And thank God to Dan Gilbert. Dan, I want to shout out to you because you've done you have been magnificent. Downtown, you have recreated it, and you have brought the energy back that we need. So let's put all of this together and look at the big picture for everybody to look at. We have the perfect opportunity to become wealthy and help redevelop our community. I suggest to you that investing in urban areas is philanthropic. It's philanthropic. Me, I just only want to invest in urban areas. Sure, I can make money building an apartment building out in the suburbs, but I'd rather do it right here because I'm a philanthropist. So I get the great feeling of being a philanthropist. Like when I built Woodbridge Estates, we built it for $100 million and we built it very, very fine, and it's paying off. Got a little story on that for you too. But look at your contribution to the city. I just want to pause and just give you a really little story. When we were building Woodbridge Estates, myself, Slavic, Bill, we all came, and the question that was most on my mind was, Herb, since I was the majority partner, what is it that you seek? And I told him I want to build something. I want to leave my footprint because I'm only going to be here on Earth just so long. And so the question was, it's $100 million, it's 12% development fee, which is $12 million. If you built a normal unit, like 800, 900 square feet for a 2-bedroom, but suppose you turned around and built it the way that you want to build it, 12 and 1,300 feet, 3 bedrooms, you're going to spend so much money on the development of the units until you're going to push your development fee down, and instead of getting 12 million, you'll end up with 2 million. And the question, or 2 or 3 million, I think that was the question. So the question they asked me, which one do you want to do? You want to make the 12 million or you want to make the 2 or 3 million? Which one do you want to do? I said, I want to build the very best possible development. So I selected the 2 or 3 million because there was a trade-off. If I had built the cheaper version, it would have been in my estimation what I would call low-income housing, and I didn't want to build low-income housing. But you know what the good news is? That area code right now, this is right outside 40201, is so hot. Those units that we built that we were leasing for $1,100 and $1,200, the gamble that we took, because market rates were still only so much money, they are now leasing for $3,000. Can you imagine a 3-bedroom in Woodbridge Estates is now $3,000. Just 2 years ago, it was $1,300. Nobody was even thinking about $1,500 or $2,000. It is now $3,000. So all of a sudden, the gamble is paid off. We have the inventory that we need, and in the long run, it's coming back and bouncing back. So what I'm simply telling you is Detroit is the place to be. There is 40,000 people want to move in all at one time, and that's in area codes 48201, 02, 06, and some of the other area codes. And they're paying cash. And many of these are people who have lived here, their parents lived here, and they're moving back in. And then the traditional Detroiters that have been here and that has never moved, they do not have enough real estate. They're staying with their parents, their aunties, their uncles, and they need housing. Just put a for sale sign out anywhere and you'll get loads of calls. And you know what I mean. And it is further crippled by perceived financing and credit scores and things like this, but there's a gigantic demand for housing. So here's what I want to ask you. How do we put all of this together and bring it all together? And before I finish, let me talk about just a couple more opportunities. When you look at the sheriff sales, for example, every week, every Thursday, there are sheriff sales. These sheriff sales properties that go for 10 cents on the dollar. 10 cents on the dollar. How could something go for 10 cents on the dollar and there's a gigantic demand? It doesn't make sense. How could there be a gigantic demand and low inventory and low prices? It doesn't make sense. The reason it is psychological depressed. Now that's something. It's not economically depressed, it's psychologically depressed. It's just like you go and you say, look, how much rent can you get for something? You can get $800 for it after expenses and everything. You're in and you're making $500 a month. It's $6,000, and let's say a year net operating income. If you have 2 units, that's $12,000 a year. At a 10% cap rate, it's $120,000. Yet you could buy that same building for say $70,000. Well, how is it possibly going for $70,000 with a $12,000 income at a 10% cap rate? It's worth $120. But in other major cities, the cap rates are 5%, which would make it worth $240. Yet you could buy it at just a fraction of what the real value. In other words, the income approach proves the value. The income approach all by itself. What can you rent the house out for? This is the first time in our life that you could rent a property out and make a cash flow and pay the full market value and yet make a cash flow for 2 reasons. The prices are very low and the interest rates are very low. So what is contributing to these low prices? The sheriff sales, the tax auction, although the tax auctions are heating up now and those prices have jumped significantly. Right now, you still have sheriff sales. So what's this thing about sheriff sales? Why is it that sheriff sales are so hot? And why would a bank take a house that's worth $100,000 and offer it for $10,000 when there's a big demand? Why don't they inventory the house and get a real estate agent to sell it? Or why don't they offer it for more? Well, the banks have created this rut for themselves, and they did it because they were getting fully reimbursed for losses. Fully reimbursed for losses. In other words, doing the top workout under top, the previous administration said, listen, banks, we do not want you to seek deficiencies against homeowners. We want you to forgive them. Short sales, forgive them. Foreclosures, do not come after them. And in exchange, what we're going to do for you is we're going to reimburse you for any losses you have. So you don't go after them, we will reimburse you. That's pretty cool. So the banks took it, in my opinion, a little far. They just dumped everything. And they took pennies on the dollar, and they now have created a value that is extremely depressed. And how do you get out of that value? How do you get out of a depression right now? Well, that is where our opportunity has been created. And the good news is that we're going to take a break in a few minutes, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how do we capitalize on this value. So the first part of our segment is our opportunity. And just to recap our opportunity, we have the opportunity of a lifetime. Demand is super high. Readily inventory is very low. Almost ready inventory is very high. Interest rates are very low. There are super prices right now, and there are places where you can blitz, meaning finding properties and buying them still very, very cheap. And the economy is booming. The economics behind the deals are fabulous, but the deals are psychologically depressed. You can buy a property and pull cash out at the closing if you structure it right. Did you hear what I say? You can buy a property right now and pull cash out at closing easy because you are buying it at far less than what the value is, and these values are jumping. They are jumping. The values in 48206 was simply $35,000, $40,000 20 months ago. Now look what those values are. They all are in excess of $100,000. In other words, the values have jumped 500%. Think of Bagley community. Bagley was selling for $35,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. Bagley now is all over $100,000 right now and booming towards normalcy. So these are the opportunities. Just wait around. I'll be right back after the break, and we're going to talk about how do we capitalize on these opportunities. We are back with the opportunities of a lifetime in the city of Detroit. So all of my colleagues, I just want, if you haven't got time to listen to this whole program, I just want you to remember what our website is. I didn't mention it at the end of our break, which is StratherAcademy.com. And our phone number is 313-444-9691. And you can always get a hold of us through the website or through the phone number. So the first segment, we talked about the opportunities in Detroit with the huge demand, the low prices, the low interest rates, and the special programs, and the continual psychological depression, although the economy is booming. So that is a perfect scenario. The moon, the stars, the sun have lined up. But you know, just like an eclipse, you know, the sun gets blocked out when there's eclipse, but it doesn't stay blocked out. It slowly moves. So this opportunity would be impossible to stay like this because the demand would just make it bust through the roof all by itself. The economy booming all of a sudden is going to increase interest rates and increase prices. The demand from investors all over the world who want to know which way is Detroit is going to increase the prices. So it is not possible that this scenario is going to stay like this, and probably 2018 is going to be your last year. So those of you who want to get involved, stop procrastinating and join us, and let's make it happen. Now, what I want to talk to you about now, and I'm excited about this, is our opportunities that we have that are very unique to Detroit. So we have a couple of financing programs. One of the things that have hindered us is the lack of financing. So because prices were pushed so low, it was very difficult to put mortgages on most of the Detroit properties. If you put a mortgage, for example, a FHA mortgage for $25,000, your hard costs would push it up into predatory lending, the rate itself. So in order to avoid predatory lending, you had to be somewhere around $35,000 or $40,000 in order to avoid predatory lending. Now, you could probably structure a deal where the seller paid most of the closing costs and maybe kind of get around it a little bit. But properties that were less than $40,000 are hard to do. And then people who were coming in offering conventional financing wanted to be on the upper end of things. They didn't want to get stuck. They wanted to also package their things where Fannie Mae would buy the mortgages and all. So everybody's looking for a $50,000 sale. A $50,000 sale price is a little difficult on properties that have been selling, that was once selling for more than $100,000, now we're selling for less than $50,000. It's more difficult. So as I indicated to you earlier, we have one of the greatest philanthropic communities in the world. Southeastern Michigan have a great philanthropic community. So with the wisdom of our new mayor, in his first administration, Mike Duggan came in at the time that Detroit was still in bankruptcy. He went to see the President Barack Obama, and they cut a deal. They cut a deal with FHA, and look at this deal. The deal they cut, Detroit, was that we will have a special program where FHA joint ventured with the philanthropic community and create a program and take a gamble to lift prices to what their real value should be, to lift prices to what their real value should be. And what kind of program they created? It is called Detroit Home Mortgage. Detroit Home Mortgage. And how does it work? It consists of a first mortgage and a second mortgage. The first mortgage is for the after repair value. They will loan the full amount of the after repair value. They will loan 96.5%, which is a FHA mortgage. Whatever, say if the after repair value is $60,000, 3.5% is around $2,something hundred, $2,000, a little bit over $2,000. So you can borrow, what would that be, about $2,100? So you can borrow somewhere around, on a $60,000 mortgage, a little bit less than $58,000, $57,800, $900. Let me get that right. Then, if for repairs, for improvements, you may want if you're going to, let's say that a homeowner owes $90,000 on their home and they want to sell it, but it's only worth 60, so they can't sell it. But under this program, they can sell it because the first mortgage you can borrow up to $60,000 is the first mortgage, and all over which you have to put 3.5% down. Then you get a second mortgage for 5%, 100%, no money down on the second mortgage. So in the case where you're trying to sell a property for, say, $100,000, you owe $90,000 on it. You want to sell it and you want to sell the property, you have a desire to sell it, you can now sell that property that has a market after repair or market value of $60,000. You can sell that for $100,000. As a matter of fact, Detroit Home Mortgage will go $75,000 over and above the after repair value. Now, assuming that the property is already repaired, and they would just simply take the market value plus 75, and they'll go that far over and above. But you say, well, that's great, Herb. And guess what? They have 140 people in line to buy a home, and they have not been able to put to satisfy all of the buyers. Now, they've done a phenomenal job in some communities, like East English Village. Properties have pretty much doubled almost because they have slowly brought these prices up because people were willing to pay more because their mortgage payment is not going to be any higher. As a matter of fact, their mortgage payment is a lot less than their neighbors. They turn around and pay $100,000 for it. Look at their mortgage payment, as opposed to what their neighbor's mortgage payment. The difference between the interest rate is staggering. Now, I should say this one thing. This program with Detroit Home Mortgage is a 20-year financing, FHA, 20 years rather than 30 years. So that does put a drag on it a little bit. It puts a little drag on it, and maybe rightfully so, because it could just be inflationary and kind of run away. In other words, your mortgage payment is going to be higher because you're going to pay it off over 20 years rather than 30 years, but that's okay. But the question is, people say, gee, I'm going to pay more than what the current market value is. Why would I do such a thing? Well, these market values are going to jump back anyway. You have low affordable payments, and that's really, 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 really good news. So you're not going to really lose out. And there could be seller concessions. What do I mean by seller concessions? The seller can pay 6% of your closing costs. That's good news, you understand. The seller can possibly give some other improvements. And you have to be very careful because these things are not on the HUD-1 statement. You know, what the seller did offer some concessions, that would be between the seller and the buyer, quite frankly. And HUD, and I'm sure the lenders don't want to know anything about it, but that does leave some room for seller concessions. Now, I know it's not their policy, you know, but I think we can read between the lines a little bit that there could be some reasonable negotiations, and as long as you don't get really carried away with it. But here's a program that they will loan $75,000 over the market value. And here's the good news. So you don't have to hesitate. So you could say yes. If something should happen to you, you lose your job, you have to relocate, you might say, well, how about if I have to relocate? How do I now sell it? I'm being in the exact same situation that the person whom I bought it was in. In other words, I'm underwater. Well, guess what? You can get a forgiveness of some or all of the $75,000, some or all of the second mortgage, whatever that amount might be. It may not be 75, it may be 30, it may be 20, but that is possibly forgiveness if you have to run into what we say a hardship. This is a tremendous program. Think about it. In other words, what the philanthropic community is saying to us is this, that we know that these properties are psychologically depressed, and we're going to bet on it. We'll put our money up on it. And here it goes right now. Now, there is plenty of money still left in this program. It's not going to last forever because once prices have come back, then there would be no need for the program itself, because obviously a person would do a lot better just getting a regular 30-year FHA mortgage, because it's amortized over 30 years. The debt constant is closer to 5.25 rather than 7.5%, which is the debt constant if you use 20-year financing for the first and the second, as opposed to 30 years. In other words, if you use 20 years, your payments is going to be 7 to 7.5% of whatever the debt is, if you use 20 years. And if you use 30 years, your payment is going to be closer to 5.25 to 5.5% of whatever the debt is. And on 100 grand, that's 7,500 versus 5,500. So you see there is a difference there. So if you can get an FHA mortgage in all cases, it's great. But suppose the property need repairs. FHA have a 203B program, but this program, they will not allow a homeowner to close and put the money in escrow and do all these substantial repairs. Yes, you can do some, but they want these things done. They want the cracks fixed in the sidewalks. They want the gutters done. They want whatever is needed, the violations, they wanted them completed. So FHA loans are for rent-ready properties, are for properties that are available to be occupied. This is a Detroit Home Mortgage Program, and you can just look it straight up and you can get directly in contact with them. Now, the good news is over at Strather Academy, we could help you. You could just call us at 313-444-9691, and you can ask for DeAndre, you can ask for Raquel, you can ask for Connie, you can ask for help with the mortgage, and we're there to help you. And let me tell you something, you can always ask for me too. Although I might be a bit busy, but I make myself available to students wherever they are, and no matter what level they're on. And at the end of this, we're going to give you an opportunity to become involved, because we got some really, 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 really good news for you on how you can get involved and not have to pay $30,000 and a whole bunch of money out that these typical education opportunities cost. You can pay 2 figures rather than 5 figures, or 10 or 6 figures, or 5 figures. So now that's how Detroit Home Mortgage works. That is really good news. Now, if you like that program, I want you to buckle up, because I got another program for you that is even, I think, in many ways, even greater, but they complement each other in different ways. For example, under Detroit Home Mortgage Program, you could take and buy the property, start fixing it up, and maybe someone come along and want to buy it, you can just sell it to them and then start all over again. In other words, let me get this straight so you understand. This could be an acquisition rehab flip. And that's exactly what happened. When they first started the program, people, it was very hot, Chicago, Boston, they were buying the homes. They'll buy them for $95,000. They'll put in 50 grand, and they'll turn around and flip them for $250,000 to $300,000. It was so amazing. They would obviously, once you do it, you realize the opportunity. You rather just keep doing it. So they just went from house to house to house. This other program we have does not allow that, but it has another set of features, and you can figure out which one would work best for you. But I'm fixed to get in this, but before I get in it, I want you to do me a favor. Buckle up. Now, it is called NACA, NACA, that's National Assistance Corporation of America, and it was created in response many years ago to predatory lending. This group marched around the country, and they now have 27 offices all around the country. They created a tremendous program with great demand. The demand, as a matter of fact, was so great in Detroit, you maybe had 500 people trying to get a mortgage all at once, and only a few agents helping out, and they kind of got a little bad reputation in Detroit because people was not able to get the deals through fast enough. In many cases, they had to keep updating material they had given them because it expired, and it just wasn't quite organized as well. Well, I've really got some great news for you, because one of Strather Academy students took over, and we were so happy. His name is Donnell Covey, and NACA is in the Center One building, One Center building right at West Grand Boulevard, which is attached to the St. Regis Hotel. And they can also be gotten online, or you can call our office, 313-444-9691, and you can let us help you get it through and navigate it, because now 2 of Strather Academy's interns in the office is going to be joining NACA in January. So in the next week, they'll be joining NACA, and you can process your stuff right through Strather Academy, Strather Associates, Strather affiliated companies, and we'll show you how to structure these deals, how to find these deals, how to make the deals most beneficiary to you. I want you to read between the lines a little bit too. Now, let me tell you about this program, and you're not going to believe it. You're going to say, Herb, I don't believe it, first of all, because the program is unbelievable. Here are some of the features on it. First of all, it's a 30-year mortgage, and it's 25 basis points less than FHA. In other words, whatever FHA interest rate is, this is 25 basis points, and mortgage insurance is not needed. That's number one. Number two, they will loan 100% of the after repair value, 100% of the, without any closing costs and no down payment. I got to tell you this, 100% of the after repair value without closing costs or down payment. That is really good news. In addition to that, they will loan 50% over and above the after repair value for improvements only. Now that's a little different than Detroit Home Mortgage, because they will loan $75,000 over and above the after repair value for either acquisitions and or improvements. It doesn't matter. Whereas NACA will go up to the 100% of the after repair value, and they will loan the 50% over and above only for repairs. So in the case where you have a $90,000 house and you have $60,000 market value, you wouldn't use NACA in that case, because you would not be able to borrow the $90,000. You would go to Detroit Home Mortgage in that case. But look at the opportunities that NACA have. No down payment, 30-year financing. They would go 100% of the after repair value. Now, what does that mean? That means if you bought something for $20,000 and the after repair value is $60,000, they will loan $60,000. And I want you to understand this. They will loan $60,000, plus they will loan another $30,000, 50% over and above the $60,000 for repairs. But how would you sell something that you bought for $20,000 for $60,000? And if you bought it for $20,000, I can imagine the condition is you're going to have to put some money in it anyway in order to sell it to someone. You're going to have to stimulate their imagination. You're going to have to do some architectural renderings. You're going to have to do some improvements. So what kind of improvements would I suggest that you do? Here's what I tell my staff and what we tell our students. Go in and lay out the basic house. Paint the house thoroughly and do the flooring. Take out the kitchen completely. When I say take the kitchen out, take all the cabinet walls out and smooth the floors out, the walls out, so you can get ready to rehab the kitchen. Let them come in and have the kitchen of their lifetime. So I would do the two-tone paint job, white ceilings, absolute white trim, livable gray or livable taupe or brownish. Lay it out in up-to-date colors and give them hardwood floors or brand new carpet and lay it out where they're excited. And then go in the basement and do the same thing. Paint it completely and then take and do your flooring there, the epoxy floors with the little design in it. You could really excite someone without spending a ton of money, just imagination, and leave the extra improvements. What kind of extra improvements are you talking about? I'm talking about knocking the walls out, maybe, in the kitchen and putting in the island. I'm talking about putting solar paneling on the roof. I'm talking about a finished basement if they want to. I'm talking about with built-ins in the kitchen with the brick walls and the like. You can enhance improvements, and you can really make it happen. Now, if you think that's something, look at this. You can buy the rate down to 1/8. You can do a rate buy down for 1/8 That's good news, everybody. What does that mean when I say a buy down for 1/8? That means you have a $100,000, 3.6% interest. Your payment is $550. No, excuse me, $455. That's what your payment is. If you spent $13,920 and bought the rate down for the same $454 payment, instead of borrowing $100,000, you could borrow $160,000. That's good, exciting news. You can buy it down. Each 1% buys the rate down 0.25%. So it takes 4% would on $100,000, $4,000 would buy the rate down a full point. That's good news, everyone. So let's talk about NACA's phone number too, by the way. It's 281-928-3806. Is that 3806 or 3866, John?
3806.
3806. But better yet, just call 313-444-9691. Let us take care of it, help you structure it. Now, here's one of probably the greatest thing. It's not based on your credit score. Can you imagine that NACA's recent deal they closed was for $200,000, and the credit score was, they only had a 525 credit score. Now, NACA will do a deal all over Michigan, essentially, whereas Detroit Home Mortgage will only do Detroit, not Highland Park, not River Rouge, 100% Detroit, where NACA will take the suburbs and all of the other areas in southeastern Michigan, and they'll do them anywhere. The reason they do not rely on credit scores is they realize that under the Great Recession and the tremendous of millions of property owners that went into foreclosure, that they all had credit scores. That's how they were able to get the mortgage, yet they defaulted. So what's the deal? It's not the credit score, it's the ability to pay. And sometimes your credit scores are low just from lack of credit. Like if you don't have any credit, if you never had any credit, you wouldn't have a credit score. Or you may have a miscellaneous credit for something miscellaneous that's really almost immaterial. You understand? So they really want to look and see, do you make your rental payments on time? If you can show them that you pay $650 a month, for example, and you've paid your landlord for 6 months and you paid them on time, then they say, okay, you're going to pay. So they could use alternative sources of evidence that you can pay also. Now, here's the thing that excites me about it more than anything else. They will use all sources of income. Now, listen to this. This is the greatest thing that you have ever imagined. They will use Section 8 housing vouchers. If you are a Section 8 recipient, and you have 2 kids. You need a 3-bedroom, a girl and a boy. Let's say you get $800 a month. $800 a month, and they would use that certificate. Do you know what $800 would buy? On a buy down, $800 would buy a $150,000 house. A $150,000 house in Detroit? Where is it at? Rosedale Park, Bagley, and in some cases, there may be a few in university area. Now, some areas they will not go in if it's high income, like you can't buy Palmer Park or Sherwood Forest. But most of Northwest Detroit you can buy. Most of Detroit you can buy. I don't think you can buy in Indian Village because they want affordable housing, and you can't go over the AMI too much, the area media income. But look at this. How do a Section 8 person can now buy a house? How many Section 8 people would immediately want to buy a home? They have not been able. There's not been a program that would allow a Section 8 certificate holder to buy a house. There are MSHDA programs that with low-income housing tax credits financed over 15 years, and at the expiration, the occupant can buy the house. Yes, there are a few programs like that. I think they're kind of wrapping up right now. But a program that will say to someone with a Section 8 certificate, and this is not someone that's living in a home that have Section 8 that's under a Section 8 contract. This is a certificate that you can use that certificate and buy a house. This is so exciting. So what it all boils down to, it boils down to knowledge. And we got it. And we want you to just to stick with us. If you got to run, just remember this number, 313-444-9691 or StratherAcademy.com. Just stay with us because we're going to come back to you with an invitation to the good life. A couple of minutes. All right, everybody. Boy, we've had one live session. And I want to tell you something. I really, really enjoy talking to you. I get really excited about taking the information in my head and sharing it with you. You know, one of the greatest things I can do is to create the next generation of developers and investors that will help Detroit come back. But I would like to do it in the right way. We like to promote home ownership. So this last session we have right here, this last few minutes, we want to talk to you about Strather Academy itself and how you can get involved and what we do to help homeowners. You know, one of the things that I'm most excited about is our program to help homeowners. I told you that the banks have been fully reimbursed for their losses. Now, by the way, this program may have ended September the 30th, and there's just residual carryover now based on what they've had in their inventory. I would think there's a wind down that it just can't abruptly end because there's got to be a wind down. But we do know that the presidential politics have, our current president has been, stopping the programs from the previous administration. So it's very possible that this could be wrapping up. And I saw my very first evidence the other day when one of the banks asked for a deficiency under short sale. I was absolutely shocked. I didn't even think they could do it, and they explained to me that the program ended quite a while ago. They said in 2012, but I knew that wasn't really correct because they've been doing this certainly last year and this year. So you can expect that with the economy, Detroit coming out, that it's not going to go on forever. That is for sure. But one of the things is if you are a homeowner and you're losing your home, don't get uptight. It could be the greatest thing ever happened to you. And I'm not joking. I'm saying the greatest thing because you owe $100,000. That house could go for $10,000. We may buy that home for $10,000 and for you and rent it back to you for a year. And if you make all of your rental payments, you can buy it for less than half. You may be able to buy it for $30,000, $35,000. So you say, wait a minute, Herb, $100,000, I'm paying $1,100 a month. You're going to buy it, rescue it, rent it to me for, say, $650 or $700 a month. And as long as I make my payments on time, then I can turn around and buy the house for $35,000, $40,000, or less than half of what I owe. And the answer is yes. And if you make all of your payments, say if we sold it back to you for $50,000, but told you that if you never missed a payment, don't mail it to us, just put it in our bank account or the investor's bank account, whom we may arrange the sale through, then that you don't have to pay the last 12 or 18 payments. You could save yourself $7,500 or $10,000. So you're motivated not to default. You're motivated to make those payments. This is great news. So if you know someone that is in foreclosure, if you're in foreclosure, then just send them our way, 313-444-9691, or go to StratherAcademy.com. Now look, let's just face it. We all know that from the television advertisements and from radio and from promotions, there are these real estate gurus that come into Detroit. They don't live here. They come in here every other month. They come 6 times a year, 3 or 4 times a year, and they do these weekend seminars. And they give you a discount. I think they're around $1,000 or $1,300, but they give you a pretty deep discount to attend. And they give you what I consider some pretty good information. I had a policy not to even deal with it, but I decided to look into it. And as I look and see what the material they offer, I don't disagree with any of it. Ours is a little bit more comprehensive, but I think they offer basically a good program. At the end of the program, they offer you an opportunity to stay involved, to be mentored. And in this regard, you could pay either $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000. $30,000, $40,000, or $50,000 for a 1 to 2 year mentorship. in a city that they do not live in, and a lot of Detroiters buy it. I've seen these seminars, they're packed, and I can tell you right now that 30 to 50 people pop. If it's 50 people buy, and it could be more because they're in 5 or 6 different locations. If 50 people go for it, just 50, even at the minimum amount, it's $1.5 million. So I can see why they come back every few months. So you're talking about them pulling out $9 to $10 million a year out of our economy, teaching you how to invest in Detroit. And once they leave, you don't have the ability to pull that off. I have some of you do, but some of you find it very challenging. I have several people in my class that have come to my class after paying $30,000 in tears, and they've joined the academy and they've done very, very well. One of them is named Paula. Paula paid $30,000. She came back. Her husband wouldn't give her the money to join my class. She borrowed some money from her daughter. She joined our class, which was 10% of that amount, less than 10%. And she's, from that $6,000 she started with, she makes $5,500 a month cash flow. In other words, she's created a $500,000 portfolio or more in less than 2 years. So here at Strather Academy, our purpose is Detroit. It really isn't the suburbs. Now, if you want to buy a house in the suburbs, yes, we'll help you, but our focus is Detroit. Now, when I say Detroit, I mean Detroit, Hamtramck, Highland Park, Inkster, Ecorse, yes. We deal with the urban areas, River Rouge, yes. It's the urban area of Detroit, but our emphasis is on Detroit itself, but we will focus with any of the enclaves right around Detroit. And we will show you how to buy these properties and to take and leverage them. By leveraging them, you can take and borrow against the asset and you can pull out cash. And as I indicated earlier, this is the first time in our life that we've been able to buy a home at the full market value and have a cash flow. Just think about it. If you bought a house for $40,000, your mortgage payment is only $200. And if your mortgage payment, taxes, and insurance is only $400, yet that house you could probably rent for $800. So suppose you put a $60,000 mortgage on it and pull $20,000 or $20,000 out of it. Then your payment is $100 more. So you have a $500 payment. You put $15,000 in your pocket, and you have a $300 monthly cash flow. This is good news, everyone. Good news. You can do that. And how do you go about it? Well, we want to extend to you an invitation to the good life, and that is to join Strather Academy. Join us, and we have an opportunity. If you don't have a penny, register, get on the website, and at least read some of the blogs, because we tell you have to either find the deal, fund the deal, finance the deal, fix the deal, or flip the deal. I recently sold to one of the students a land contract, and his equity was his work. He didn't have any money. I put the material up, he fixed the house up, and that was his down payment. And he makes his payments right now. That is good news. He fixed the deal. Many students have simply found the deal. They went out and found a great deal presented, and those who are busy working, they got credit and money, they may not have the time to go out and blitz and find a deal. So those who have found the deals, they put it in the pool, and the people and some of the students who have credit scores and cash have bought the properties, and they did not have the time to really go out and do the underwriting, find the owner, look the owner up, get a hold of the owner, structure deal, and make a deal. So you can join the team. You can become part of Strather Academy. This is the invitation to the good life. Our phone number is 313-444-9691. Our programs range from as little as $500 a year for coaching, or $45 a month, we would say, on our mastermind, just our mastermind group. Just join our mastermind group. You would get webinars each month. You get newsletters, deal sheets. You would get the podcast that you're listening to now. And you would get access to us, a chat room. You could call us up, ask us any questions. Or you could take our class. Our class is 10 weeks, and it's only running $3,000. That is really good news. These classes would run $13,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 normally. Ours is just $3,000. You could do our acquisition course, for $5,000, and we will include the Quick Start program in it. Our Quick Start is the $3,000 course. Or you could take our Quick Start online for just $1,000. Every time I teach, the next day we upload it, and you can sit there and listen to it, and then you can ride in your car and you can get the education of a lifetime. Or if you are an accredited investor, and by credit you would have to have a minimum of $500,000, and you would have to have six-figure net operating income, you could get private coaching. Private coaching, you might say, look, I want $1 million. I want to acquire $1 million worth of real estate. We'll show you how to get the $1 million worth of real estate almost fully leveraged. And what does that mean? That if you have the balance sheet, we can put you in there, finance the deal, and make it happen. Hell, just join the limited liability company and go to the bank as a borrower and not a buyer. Now, that was a freebie right there. Now, look at that. That's just one of the ways we do things, but you still got to structure it right. So we're going to invite you to join us. January the 2nd and January the 4th would be an open invitation to any of you who would like to come to our class. We're at 15400 Grand River, second floor. It's called Tower Center. And you could just call us at 313-444-9691 and let us know you want to come. Or you can go on Strather Academy website, and this invitation is going to be open to anyone that is seriously interested to take any product whatsoever. It could be the $45 course. It could be our class that you want to take. You can go, or you can just simply download our home study course. It's only $400, but it's worth, I say, $4 million. It is loaded with information that you will need. And we extend this invitation. We call it an invitation to the good life to join us. And if you do not want to get any of the products yet, but you would like to really check us out, you can call us and have that discussion. And we would also perhaps allow you to come as long as we have the seating arrangement. So you have an invitation to join us. Those who pick up any of the products, then you will have demonstrated your commitment and you automatically get a seat. And those who may not join us but want to check us out, you can have a seat if in the event there's availability. So this is Herb Strather, and I just want to tell you how great it is talking to you and how important it is that we all join together to redevelop our city, to make it happen. And we can do it. There are the tools. There's Detroit Home Mortgage, there is NACA, there is sheriff sales, there is land bank properties also. And you know, I just want to reach out to all of the city employees. If you are a city employee or teacher, you can buy the land bank properties for 50%. So of course there's an invitation to you to come and join us. We'd love to partner with you on some of those things. This is Herb Strather. And if you have any questions about anything, we want you to feel free to call us. Just go to stratheracademy.com or call 313-444-9691. And just remember Section 8 recipients, you too can buy a house. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Herb Strather, I'll see you next week.